On behalf of the Student Council and the Peer Leadership Council, I would like to once again welcome you to the 2021 Elgin Park Virtual Career Webinar, Day 3. Today, I'm speaking on the shared traditional and unceded territory of the Katsi, Semiahmoo, and other Coast Salish peoples. To begin, my name is Ruth, and I'll be your coordinator for this session. We also have our wonderful PLC and Stuco volunteers here as chat moderators and note takers. Without further ado, I'll be passing the mic on now to our student interviewer, Catherine, who I'll be introducing our honor guests today.
Thank you. Our speaker here today is Frances Yang. Frances is a former Elgin Park student and a senior currently conducting her studies in architecture and design at UC Berkeley. Throughout her college journey, she has taken various passion projects, such as working as a design consultant with companies like Oracle and Kiva, followed by co-founding Berkeley's first open community design club. After achieving her degree, Frances intends to pursue a profession in either architecture or UI/UX design. We couldn't be more ecstatic today to get to know Frances and to dive into her journey with product design and architecture. Please join me in welcoming Frances.
Hello.
So to get started, what different opportunities are available for architects?
I think when I first got into architecture, I definitely thought like you can only go into becoming an architect. But there are a lot of different opportunities, and people who study architecture with me, they don't necessarily go into they don't necessarily become an architect anyways. I guess the first thing is like interior designer. That's like the obvious one. Other ones could be different sorts of designers. Like for example, I kind of found another route of like becoming UI UX designer, and I'm sure there's like other people who do like creative direction. I think spatial design or like exhibition design, those are pretty cool, or like event design. So the sets that you see on movies, things like that, a lot of architects do that too, which is pretty cool. I don't know the specific route, like how to get there, but I know some architecture students do go into that.
Yeah, I think that can be kind of unexpected, because usually when you think of architecture, there's like one singular path, but it's definitely good to know that there's so many areas that you can go into. Mm-hmm. Please describe your university experience at UC Berkeley in 3 words.
3 words, okay. I think the first one is eye-opening. I feel like I came to the US not expecting anything really, because I didn't know what to expect. And a lot of things, I feel like I did a lot of things that I only see in movies, which I thought was really cool, because like we go to football games and all that. And that kind of like really enriched my college experience. The second thing is diverse. I think Berkeley specifically is a very diverse school in terms of different cultures, different people that you meet, and also the different, I guess, perspectives that you'll encounter. Right. Because Berkeley is known for being super liberal, maybe a little too liberal, I don't know. People are not afraid to say what they think, and we are actually encouraged to kind of question everything that we're taught, which is pretty cool. So they really encourage like diverse thinking and all that. And the last one would probably be, I think, just very innovative. I don't know if that's like correct to describe an experience, but I think I learned a lot of things that I perhaps wouldn't have encountered in other schools, in terms of like in the tech industry, I guess, because like Berkeley really does a lot with like new things with tech and being in Silicon Valley and all that. And in terms of like applying that to architecture, I think for Berkeley's architecture school, they also push a lot of new ideas. And since Berkeley is also like a research university, they do a lot of research and like look for new design styles, new I guess design curriculums for future architecture students as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a very interesting program and definitely a lot of positivity on campus and at Berkeley. So that's very good to know. What do you think would be some of the hard and soft skills of an architect?
Mhm. Okay, I can speak to the hard skills first because that's like the most obvious ones. Like for example, in the past 4 years, we learned a lot on like Illustrator, Photoshop. Those are the basic ones. And we do use 3D modeling softwares that if you go into like architecture, you'll have to learn. Honestly, the learning curve was it was a quite big learning curve, to be honest. But we use softwares called like Rhino 3D. That's the main one that we use for Berkeley. There's also AutoCAD and Revit. I don't know if this probably doesn't mean anything to you guys, but just like 3D software basically. And then there's different ones that you'll learn along the way, and then they're all pretty similar actually. You just need to know where the buttons are and all that. And they do pretty cool stuff. I think they can do like, you can make a shape and then you can render it. So you can say like, oh, I want this part to be wood and then this part to be glass. And then you can like assign the different materials, adjust the lighting and everything, and it'll make it look like an actual building, which is pretty cool. What other hard skills? I think if you know how to sketch, that is also a plus. Don't need to really know how to draw. I have a lot of classmates that hate sketching, but they're doing fine as well because a lot of stuff that you do later on is all on a computer. So yeah. Soft skill wise, I think the most important one is presentation skills, like knowing how to present your ideas. But that comes with every profession, I think. But for creatives, I think whether it's like design or architecture, you need to know how to present your ideas to clients, or when you're like presenting it to your professor, when you're putting up your work, talking about it, how to get your idea across. And when people are critiquing your work, how can you defend it?
Right. So would you say like learning how to use 3D software, illustration, and proper communication in your presentation is very important to any students that would want to become an architect?
I think so. But I think these all come with like time and experience because the 3D software definitely takes a while to get used to. And you'll just start doing more and more advanced stuff. So, because like we started off just doing blocks. And then later on, like, I don't know, sophomore year, we did like multi-level buildings. And then junior year, we started doing like the facade and like the outside of the building and how to make it look nice. And then the fourth year, we did a lot of like community engagement and how people can interact with the space and things like that. So it takes time with presentation skills too. I think just know that it'll come with more practice.
That's good to know. Yeah, I think practice can definitely be a huge thing in developing those skills. What would you say is the hardest part about your job, and how are you able to work through that challenge?
I think the biggest challenge is knowing that the thing that you're working on might not get built. I think that's the hard reality of architecture is there's only limited money and space and time, right? So a lot of times, like when I was interning at a firm over the summer, the projects that we were working on, a lot of them were competition projects. So a lot of firms, they would like design a package of what the building would look like. They would submit it, and only like I think one or two will get selected and actually get built. And that takes another like 5 or 6 years. So yeah, just knowing that like the work that you're doing right now might not turn into anything, but it's still a good portfolio piece and things like that. I think that is the hardest part in terms of other like hard skills and all that. I think the transition was pretty smooth. Usually when you go work at a firm, when you're just starting off, they are pretty nice and they kind of give you tasks that falls within your skill range. So I think the mentality switch is more important when you're trying to get used to becoming an architect.
Yeah, so I would say there are like a lot of up and downs throughout that journey. So kind of continue on to that. Could you tell us about project that you have worked on previously and your role in it?
For sure. So the one that I was just mentioning, so I interned in Singapore. I did a study or intern abroad my sophomore summer, and I went to Singapore and I worked at a firm called HKS, and we were working on the national stadium for Singapore, which is really cool. I mean, Singapore is really small, so yeah, so we were working on the national stadium, and then again, it was a competition project. So I don't know if we actually won or not, but because I left, I was only there for 2 months. But we worked on that project, and my role in it was I was helping them do the renderings and also the portfolio piece layout. So I didn't actually get to do the design since it was quite important, like the actual design of it, and the 3D modeling and everything is like super, super, super intricate. I don't think my skill level was there yet to touch any of the designs, but they would like do all the 3D modeling and they'll throw the file to me, and then I'll adjust the lighting for them and everything. And like the 3D modeling kind of makes it look like you're standing in the space, and you can adjust the camera angle and everything, and take like pictures of it to make it look like the actual space. So I was doing that, like adjusting the lighting and adjusting the glare and all that for the renderings. And then I was also working on the portfolio piece layout, which is quite important actually. We spent like a lot of days on it, just rearranging how everything will look, because I guess first impression to the judges really matters. So depending on how you rearrange, like where you put the text and all that, according to them is quite important. So that was also what I was working on.
Yeah, that's very impressive. And it's like really cool to learn that so many people are involved in such a big project and that it's such a detailed process. So how big of a role does teamwork play in the architecture industry?
I think it plays a very, very, very big role. I think in terms of what I've experienced so far, it's a lot of passing files back and forth. Especially since when you think about it, architecture, you need to build a building, and there's no way you know everything, right? Because there's like engineers involved, there's like you need to know where to put the plumbing and all that. Like you don't need to know the design, you need to know what material to use, and obviously you won't be like expert in all of these things. So you would need to consult specific consultants, or like if you had an in-house engineer, they'll always be checking in with you and be like, oh, this design won't work because like physics. Yeah, so a lot of teamwork, a lot of communication. That's what makes the process so long, is that you need to coordinate with a lot of people. And with architecture, the hard thing is it also connects to business. So like you need to know how long this project, or like how long it'll take to build this, and is this within the client's need, and how much money it'll cost and all that. So it's quite complicated, but within just the architecture team, or like the architecture design team, there is also a lot of communication, but I think it's mostly outwards. So like to the engineers, to the business department and all that.
Yeah, so would you say like architecture is kind of like an interdisciplinary field more?
I think so. I think with architecture, you'll definitely get exposed to a lot of different things. And that's how people find their niche actually. Because like after 4 years of architecture school, we still don't really know what area we want to go into. And once we like become an intern or like a fresh grad, will get exposed to like a lot of different things, and people might want to do people might find their niche in terms of like they want to do architecture but more on the engineering side, or like they want to do architecture but more on the coordination or your project management side.
Right. So you can kind of specialize in more specific domains. So what would a typical day on the job look like for you?
I can speak to when I was an intern because I haven't actually done a full time. But when I was an intern, it was quite nice actually. We would go in around, I think we were going around 9. But the thing is, from at least for the firm that I was working at, we don't have a hard like 9 to 5. I think for most architecture firms, it's more like project based. So as long as you get your stuff done at like before the deadline, it's fine. So some people I know would come in at 10 and things like that. But I was just an intern, so I was like, I should come in at 9. Yeah, so I would come in at 9. I had a friend with me who also did the intern abroad, so we would go together, and we would go, we would make coffee, and then we would head up, and we usually have things that we haven't finished the day before. So we would just like we have like a designated desk, and they gave us computers and things like that. So we would sit down and we would check our emails first, because usually they have daily stand-up meetings to check in with everyone. So we will see what we're going over that day, and then just start working on whatever we didn't finish. But if we don't have anything from the day before, we would wait for our manager to come, and we ask them what they need help on. And usually that's how it goes. Like when I was like looking at other actual architects, they also just come in and work on whatever they had from the day before. And again, we have our daily stand up around 11, I think. And then around 1, we head out to lunch. And within this process, like I think a day in an architect's life, a lot of it is just sitting in front of a computer and not really talking to people. The talking and communication comes with the meetings,
Oh,
because usually are assigned a lot of tasks and it's more individual work. Even though I just said there's a lot of communication, but that happens in meetings. So we have quite a lot of meetings. Usually they're in the afternoon, because we like kind of prep whatever we're going to be talking about in the morning, and then the afternoon after lunch we will have meetings with our small group. So whichever project, there's a lot of projects going on at the same time. So we would talk with the people on our team. If we have like external consultants coming in, we will also set up a meeting with them. And then, yeah, that's about it. And then we leave around 5 or 6. But one thing though is that a lot of them work overtime, as in like they leave at 7 or 8. I don't know if it's like a Singapore culture. I think it is. I'm not sure about the US or Canada, but they are very used to working overtime.
yeah, I think it's very cool that you have a more flexible schedule, and then it's as well like such a huge inspiration for a lot of our students to work on as an intern and to be able to kind of collaborate with other coworkers and be part of such a great team. What would you say is one tip that you would give students who wish to find success, whatever they may be in their professional career?
Mm-hmm. I think it would be knowing that it's okay to really not know what you're doing, because I think I've heard people say this when I was in high school, and I was like, there's no way they don't know what they're doing. But honestly, we don't know what we're doing. Or like you always think that people who are like a few years ahead of you know what they're doing, but in their mind they also think like they don't know what they're doing. I think it's a mentality thing, which applies to all professions, is that like people always think that other people act like they know more than they actually do. But I guess that's just the reality of the professional world. And you might also put on that facade just to make other people think you know a lot. So it's all relative, I think. And if you're feeling like not good enough and all that, I feel like that'll really inhibit your growth in whatever profession that you're pursuing. So just know that it's okay to not know what you're doing, and then use that like as a motivator to learn more, like observe what other people are doing or ask questions and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that can be like a huge drive to like our curiosity, and like so many of us could connect with that on so many levels. So that kind of wraps up our question session. So we would like to say thank you so much for volunteering your time today to share your story and passion. Now we'll be moving on to the Q&A portion. Is there anything else you would like to share with our students before we transition?
I think one thing is just do a lot of things in high school. High school is a good time to explore whatever you want to do. I think the consequences is a bit lower in high school in the sense that you don't really need to stick to a path. You can switch a lot of times, like do band, do art, do like math or bio, anything that you want. Explore what you like, and it'll get easier. It'll give you a head start, I think, once you get to college. Even in college, people still take a lot of time to figure out what they want to do. It's like, for example, for me, I did architecture, but also looked into UI UX and all that. But I think starting early to figure out what you like to do is better. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for that advice. Now our moderator, Michael, will be relaying the questions in the chat.
Hi, Francis, I'm Michael.
Hello.
So Mr. Wise asked a question: which high school courses benefited you in your architecture pursuits?
I think when I was in Elgin, it wasn't specifically architecture related, but I did a lot of art. I was always in Miss Perkins' room. I think that sparked my interest to go into architecture. I did AP art. I don't know if it's still a thing at Elgin, but a lot of sketching, so that helped me when I first got into architecture, because that's what we did freshman year. What else? I don't know if there's any like 3D classes but I know like 3D printing was a big thing back then. That could be helpful. I didn't take only the art classes I did that was like directly related to that. I guess physics helped a little because I was in Dr. Bain's class, and then we did a lot of building models and things like that. So that kind of also relates to that.
That's
Wait, what's Mr. Baker saying?
Yeah. So Mr. Henderson said hello, and he said it's great to see you, and he wanted to ask what were your hobbies when you were in high school?
My hobbies, again, a lot of art. But we were actually talking, like me and Catherine and Ruth were talking about it. But I also did a lot of design for band. I think that was like kind of doing what you like, but also applying it to other aspects of whatever you're doing. So I designed the band posters for jazz night and all that. That was really fun. And also did I also did a lot of like art stuff. I played tennis. That's a hobby. I like to bake and things like that. But yeah, directly related to my career stuff, design and art. That's what I meant by exploring what you like in high school.
Wow, you had a lot of interesting hobbies. So Mr. Han asked, what is the starting and highest salary for being an architect?
I only know it in US dollars, so you guys can do the conversion yourself. But I believe starting off, it's around 60K per year, which is, I think, pretty average. And for 60K, the thing is, again, I only know how it is in the US, but in California, at least you would need a license to become a full-on architect. So even everything before that, you're kind of only called a designer. And the license takes years to get because there's 3 tests that you need to pass. And usually people take some time to study for those. Kind of like the SAT, but like a little bit more intense. You have to take 3 of them, and it only happens each year. And then people usually only take 1 each year. So I think people say it takes like 6 or 7 years to actually get your license. And once you get your license, you get paid way more because obviously you know a lot more. And the reason why they have the license stuff is you need to know the code, like, okay, above how many story building you will need like fire sprinkling system and all that, like really minute details. So that's that. And I think it can go up to like 90 or 100K once you're certified. But actually a lot of people don't get certified because they don't want to put in that amount of effort and things like that. So usually people go from designer, they switch to like project manager or something else that they want to pursue later on. But I think the salary level like rises pretty steadily with more years of experience. So usually starts 60K and goes up to like, I don't know, 70, 80. And again, if you're licensed, way higher.
Wow, that's quite a lot of salaries and long years of studying. Mr. Leader,
Yeah.
have another question. Which universities and institutions are good for studying architecture in Canada?
Okay, in Canada, I actually applied to mostly Canadian school. Berkeley was the only one in the US. I wasn't planning on coming here because international tuition is so expensive. But in Canada, I know Waterloo is a really great one. U of T as well. I think Waterloo is a bit more technical. If you're sure you know that you want to go into architecture, Waterloo is very good. But if you're not sure, maybe U of T because you can easily switch. Waterloo also has good co-op program, so I would have gone there or U of T if I stayed in Canada. I know McGill also has good architecture program. I'm not sure about UBC. I think for sure they have a master's, but I think when I was doing my research, an undergrad program. I know that I don't know if Emily Carr has one, but I know they have a lot of design related things. So you could go to Emily Carr or OCAD and kind of figure out your way and then maybe go to grad school. Because I think for architecture, grad school is quite essential nowadays. So you could do like whatever design field that you want in undergrad and then go into grad school afterwards. Could go to UBC, or I think U of T also has a master's in architecture. Waterloo, I feel like they should have it too. Maybe do some research on that. But yeah.
That's interesting. I know those schools you mentioned are all great in engineering too. Rihanna asked, because a project involves professionals from many different fields, would you have an advantage in this field if you have a base understanding of engineering or business parts?
I think for sure. I think I wish Berkeley's curriculum involved more engineering side of things. Because for Berkeley, it was more conceptual based. It's a lot of design related stuff. Engineering side, we didn't learn as much, but it'll definitely give you an advantage, especially when you're designing, because you don't need to talk to the engineer as much to know that, oh, this won't work and things like that. I think business would also work, but if you want to go into like project management, maybe business will help a little more. But if you know that you like to do a lot of the design part, then engineering would help a lot more.
That's really interesting. Catherine asked, how do you deal with rejection throughout your career?
Oh, Berkeley is full of rejection. Berkeley is so competitive. I think you'll get used to it. I think that's the only thing I can say is, for example, I don't know, this is like not career specific, but it kind of applies to that. Is at Berkeley, if you want to join a club, you have to apply for it. So like it's not really open community based, it's on application based. And those you have to go through first round of interview. You have to submit your application, first round of interview, and then there's a second round of interview, and then just a bunch of stuff. It's like applying to jobs. And a lot of times you'll get rejected because you're competing with so many people, right? And the same thing to career as well. So like when you're a sophomore or freshman, when I was a sophomore and freshman, when I was applying to internships, it was really hard as well because I didn't have that much experience, right? But I think you just need to tell yourself a lot of it comes down to luck in a sense and timing. So don't be too hard on yourself. And again, you'll get used to it. And I think the right opportunity, I know people always say this, and when I was in high school, I was like, they always just say that. But the right opportunity will come. There's no way you won't be able to get anything. Like you could start at a smaller firm and like build your way up, or things like that. So there's no way you won't be able to get anything. It's just where you will start. And there could be like 3 people who are at the same skill level as you, have the same similar experience and things like that. Since you guys all come from the same school, right? But the 3 of you are competing for that one spot. So it could be like the timing when you applied, and then when the person who are interviewing you, if they had a good day or a bad day and things like that. So anything could like direct you to rejection, and a lot of times it's out of your control. So I think just being okay with it and know that there's a lot more coming down the line. So just be okay with it and learn how to move on from it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Being used to rejection and not blaming yourself when you're rejected is really important. Jennifer asked, are there a lot of opportunities for employment in your field? And as a product designer, what project were you most excited about?
In my field, I can speak both on architecture and product design. For architecture, there's good thing and a bad thing. So like there are limited firms, I think, at least the better ones. There are limited spaces, but the people you're competing with is also there's less, because like architecture is very niche and specific. So the stuff that you learn, not everyone knows. So it's not like someone from like who study media can easily switch into architecture. So in that sense, you have a head start. So the more you know, you'll become a more competitive candidate. And in terms of job prospects, I think I'm not sure about Canada, but I believe Canada and the US, there's more job opportunities like for architects than other places. But I know that it depends on what you want to do. Like for example, if you want to do like larger firms, a lot of like cool design projects, I think LA and New York are places that the headquarters are usually at. If you want to explore Europe also has a lot of really, really great architecture firms. And then if you just want to do like small residential projects or government related projects, I think again LA there's a lot. In Canada, I know Vancouver, Toronto, like the bigger cities, I think you'll get more opportunities. And in terms of product design, not sure if everyone's familiar with the term product design, but it could be like related to a physical product, but what I focus on is more on tech, so like building apps and all that. For that, there's more job prospects, especially since I study in Berkeley in the Silicon Valley and all that. There's a lot of startups, a lot of like tech companies and things like that. They're all here, so a lot of job opportunities. But the hard part is that a lot of people can switch into this field. So whoever likes to do design, and I think the bar is a bit lower to enter this field, so you'll be competing with more people. But there are more jobs, and then for architecture is there are fewer jobs, but you're competing with less people, if that makes sense. And usually firms, like I know someone from Waterloo, I know a lot of firms partner with companies. No, a lot of firms partner with schools. So they usually hire like a certain amount of students from each school. At least in Canada, they hire certain amount, like 2 students from this school, 2 students from this school. So there are spots open for specifically like Waterloo students, U of T students, and things like that. So that could be like one of the opportunities that you look for.
That's really interesting. I'm thinking of engineering, and knowing that architecture is related is comforting, because having another option is important. So Rihanna asked, how did you choose Berkeley? Was it challenging to get in? And what kind of things did you do to get into Berkeley?
Berkeley was a surprise because again, I only applied to Canadian schools. Berkeley was the only one, and I'm gonna switch into like Asian mode right now. But how it came to be was my mom told me to like, because a lot of her friends said like their kids were studying SAT and ACT. My mom's like, oh, you should study that too, just for fun, you know? And then I was like, okay, sure. And then, so I studied ACT and then took the test. It was very intense. It was like very, the test was 3 hours, but you had so much to do within that. So I took the test, didn't want to do it again. And then, so I didn't retake it because I know people who take the SAT take it like 2 or 3 times. And my mom was like, oh, you already took the test, so why don't you apply to a school? You should have Berkeley. But then the thing is, within the UC system, you only need one application. You can apply to all the UC schools. But for some reason, I only applied to Berkeley. Like you can just literally, it's just a checkbox. You just check all of them, and then you could be eligible for all the schools. But I only applied to Berkeley. My mom was like, I'm not paying like international tuition for you to go to other schools. Yeah, so I applied. I think the process wasn't hard. It's just knowing that it's very competitive is a bit mentally taxing. But the thing is, I wasn't really holding up hope either, because I actually had my mind set on U of T already, because their decision comes out in March, and I got my U of T acceptance in January, so I thought I would go to U of T and not Berkeley. And yeah, so that's how it is. I think the application process wasn't that hard. It's just knowing where your strengths are, and talking about that, and like knowing how to stand out with that. Because like I said, I think the 2 big things I did in high school, or 3 big things actually. It was design, like art, band, and tennis. And I just wrote about those big 3 things in my application.
Yeah, SAT, ACT, and APs sound really taxing. And well, thank you so much for an insightful answer.
All right, so time flies, and unfortunately our session has come to an end. And first and foremost, I would like to thank Francis for taking the time to join us today. And because I'm sure many of us were inspired by your story, and a lot of your points were very tangible to what we're experiencing right now, and your advice are like super relevant. So I'm super grateful that we have this opportunity to speak with you today. And finally, I would like to personally thank everyone for joining us today, and we hope you learn more about your interests and your passions. And a huge shout out to our teachers and volunteers who made this Career Week possible. Thank you so much. And that's about it for this session. Have a nice day, have a nice lunch, and you are free to log out now. Thank you. Thank you, Francis. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye, Mr. Leader.